The slow and steady decay of the South African economy and standard of living is kind of insane to see firsthand. Because I was born here in 2005 in Pretoria, that's where I currently am. And when I was 16, me and my family, we moved to America and we lived there in Indiana for a while for until 2025 when I came back here to study because it's too fucking expensive in America to study for foreigners, especially if your visa type just automatically excludes you from getting any scholarships. And last year, in about mid last year in 2024, I came to reset my visa because that's just how it works. So I came back to South Africa, and it was quite the contrast seeing South Africa compared to America, like a first world nation that I kind of got used to in America. I went to school there and everything. I finished high school there too this year. But it is kind of insane to see like how different just standard of living, style of living, culture and everything is. It's kind of absurd to witness because I've been to places like Chicago and a lot of big cities. Like I've been to Houston as well. And even in those places, like, yeah, you get some homeless people, but there's still so much more here. And then you also get like townships and things that people live in, and it's generational poverty that they're still stuck in and they can't escape from. I've even told some of my friends in America some of the stories of the things I've seen here. I've shown them photos. Like my grandpa has one business where we go to dump sites sometimes, and there are a lot of towns that form around those dump sites, and it's just insane for me to see these people living in such poverty, and that's what they grow up under as well, and that's what their children grow up under. And then I mean, you drive through those areas and you see like the children playing in what they call their sports field that doesn't even have grass because grass can't grow there. And like I talked to like some of my teachers, for example, in America, especially my US history teacher. He was a fascinating guy. I would speak to him about some of the things here, and I like to compare South Africa, where it is today, to United States during the Great Depression, and even today, South Africa is worse than America was during the Great Depression. And we bring up some statistics, like the fact that South Africa's unemployment rate is just constantly in the 30th percentile, like a third of the country doesn't have a job. How is the economy meant to function in a situation like that? Then you go on the news and you see Cyril Ramaphosa telling everyone that everything's fine and that the country's never been better when corruption and poverty, homelessness, crime, murder, I mean, fuck, rape is just rampant. It's disturbing. Anyone with two eyes can just clearly see that me and Cyril Ramaphosa we're clearly not talking about the same country. I don't know what he's seeing, but it's clearly not South Africa. Because even when you drive past the Union buildings, which is like the White House of South Africa, it's where the president or where the government pretty much functions from. Although South Africa does have three capital cities, that's a whole other topic. But even when you drive past there, where the president is spending a lot of his time, and you look on the front lawn, and there's like homeless people just living there, and I mean drug addicts, you see them everywhere as well. It's and it affects all races as well, and it didn't always used to be that way. Thanks to apartheid, obviously, the white population has gotten a lot more privilege in that term, in, uh, instead of the black population. And today with BEE, which is Black Economic Empowerment, it's certainly helping those populations. I mean, at least some of them get out of poverty, but not all of them. I mean, especially if you still have ministers and things who are just laundering money from the government, directly stealing it. Like that time, Cyril Ramaphosa was just found to have like $1 million just stuffed in his couch in his house, like US dollars. Like, how do you explain that? Where did that money come from? And unfortunately, a lot of the people, other members of my culture, don't agree with me on this stance. But like, apartheid was horrible. The fact that black and white people were separated not only with privilege and areas where they were allowed to roam freely. I mean, you get the pass laws and everything, which is a whole other topic, and that they weren't allowed to hold positions of power like in the government or like vote to represent themselves, even though they make up 90% of the population, thanks to the ANC and the efforts that they've gone through. How they managed to get the attention of the government is a questionable topic with targeted bombings, but the fact that they got apartheid to end is all in all good. And instead of continuing to build off of the infrastructure that was already present, they stopped building afterwards. I mean, the ANC party has been in power for the past 31 years, and the country is just degraded. I mean, I've seen photos of like Johannesburg in 2014 or 2004 and then 2014 and then 2024, and it's just gets worse over time. I mean, you get trash laying everywhere, you get rampant police corruption. Like, the police will seek you out to look for a bribe. Like, they will stop you looking for a bribe, not to do their job, but for a quick side payment. It's not like in America where the police have to have a reason to pull you over. In South Africa, they can pull you over because they think you're suspicious, although that of course is very vague and is up to the interpretation of the officer. There have been times in America where I got pulled over while driving, and I'm scared shitless. Even if I just went like 2 miles over the speed limit, I'm terrified. But in South Africa, you don't get that experience. People joke about them because they don't do their jobs. There was one time when I was little, I don't remember what specific year it was, but we had someone break into our house, and so we called the police, obviously. And do you want to know when the police arrived? 2 days later. I've been told stories of what it was like growing up under apartheid South Africa, like from my parents and grandparents. Now, obviously, from their perspective, it's a lot different from the rest of the 90% of the population who got suppressed by those laws. But it was, in general, cleaner. It was safer for everyone, even though not everyone had access to whatever public facilities there were. And as soon as everyone did get access to those things, I mean, that's awesome, of course. But then the safety went away because the police stopped doing their job. And well, not only just the police, but the government, they start stealing money. The fact that the expansion of infrastructure stopped and the safety, I guess, stopped has nothing to do with the fact that those people who took power are black. Like, black, white, pink, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that they didn't know how to run a country. And the black economic empowerment, which I mentioned earlier, is having the effect of helping some black populations get out of poverty, but then it's also having the opposite effect on the people who it's not meant to help, such as the white populations. Like, poverty in the white populations has significantly increased. My sister, for example, who just finished university, is unable to get a job. All the places she goes to apply for a job turns her down. And then afterwards, a black person would walk in with less qualifications than her, less proper education than her, and then they would get the job because of how black economic empowerment is set up. So then they don't take the person who is the most qualified for the job. They take the person who is the most qualified for the job and also the right color. And then you get farm murders and stuff like that as well, which are just absolutely fucking brutal. Like, it's disgusting that people would do shit like that. I've heard horrible stories. There's also the EFF party who are singing "Kill the Boer," which is my culture, just meaning kill white people in general.
Kichima, Cyprian Konto, Alliance, shoot to kill, Gamaza, kill the poor, the farmer, kill the poor, the farmer.
And then after they caught a whole lot of shit internationally with Donald Trump and everyone opening the refugee program for white people, then they changed the lyrics of that one song that they chant to "Kiss the Boer," but then they still afterwards sing ga da 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 boom 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 whatever, like to imply, yeah, these white people, we're gonna kill them. Now, by all fucking means, I hope Julius Malema of the EFF party does not gain power, because that would be bad. And driving around in Pretoria, um, I mean, it's a beautiful city with all the jacaranda trees and like just nature everywhere, beautiful buildings and stuff. But then there are also some of the older buildings. Like there's a series of old apartment buildings from apartment complexes from the apartheid era that today just stand empty, no more windows. Like people are stealing the railing from the stairs that are made of metal, and people are stealing that, like ripping it out of the building and going to sell it for scrap metal. People are ripping the the steel built into the structure of concrete, like how concrete is built. They rip those steel poles out and then go sell that for scrap metal, and then the building just degrades over time. And today you get it to look like it does. It's just standing empty. It looks like ruins in the middle of a thriving city. The problem of that is so complex because you can't really go and throw those people in jail that are doing these things, because the reason that they're doing it is because they can't survive. They don't have money to put food on the table. And even with Black economic empowerment, it's not helping all of them. The current situation basically is that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Now it's a lot the same in America, but in South Africa it's a lot worse. A very common sight that you would see in South Africa is people next to the road carrying these like huge wagons just filled with a bunch of like recycling material or whatever it may be, plastic or like glass bottles or something that they go sell for scraps to put food on the table. And I mean, it's huge. I can't imagine the amount of work that would go into carrying that around the whole city and just picking up trash all day. And even though you have so much of the population who make that their living, there's still trash like just actually everywhere. Like even if I compare it to the cities that I've seen in America, like Chicago, I guess was like there's definitely some areas there that are bad, but it's a lot worse here everywhere. Another example is that you can see throughout the past few decades how much the value of the currency we use, which is a rand, has changed as well, has lowered. Like, I mean, I remember, for example, when I was little, I would buy something called a chipstick, which is fucking delicious, by the way. But anyway, that used to cost 12 rand. Today it costs 25. Some places charge 30. And you can even go further back to during the apartheid era, which was, I mean, apartheid ended 11 years before I was born, so it's still kind of recent. But even back then, like my parents would tell me, they would take like a 5 rand and they would go to the shop and they would be able to buy like a few snacks and a soda as well, which you can't do that anymore. Like if you take a 5 rand today to a store, you might be able to buy like a candy, like not even like a candy bar, just like a single Skittle or something. But it is very sad for me to see the poverty rates and everything increasing and the standard of living decreasing. I mean, health as well is decreasing, like people's health in general. We see people with all kinds of strange diseases and stuff that aren't really curable here because there's no funding for that. There's either no funding or no technology. Like just on that topic of technology, for example, I guess this is like a small thing. South Africa is hot as balls. I'm not even kidding. Like the summers in America are like the winters in South Africa, and the summers here are even worse. Like it's so hot. We need air cons, is what I'm trying to say, but only rich people are able to get air cons. If you walk into a lot of places, for example, you walk into a store or something, it's still hot in there. It's not like in America where you would go into some place and you just immediately hit with like a wave of cool air, or like in the winters there when it snows, for example, and you walk into a building and then you just hit with a wave of warm air and it's just comfortable all of a sudden. You know what I'm saying? Now, luckily, I guess the heat is fine because luckily it doesn't snow here. I think it would be a lot worse if South Africa, like a lot of the regions, got cold enough to snow. Like in my life growing up here, I've literally never seen snow until I went to America. But I think it would be worse because then, like I say, a lot of those people aren't, they can't get heaters, they can't get air cons or whatever they need to either cool down or warm up. Like the best that you can do in that situation is a blanket. And nothing lasts forever. So I do hope that in my lifetime at least that I can see significant improvement in all of these things that I've mentioned, that these people can be lifted out of poverty regardless of what their race is. The fact that they're in poverty and that they're impoverished is the problem. I hope to see that someday it might be safe to walk around again, like when my parents and so on that have told me, like when they were little, they used to walk around outside and it was fine. Like people would let their children play in the park and stuff, but you can't do that anymore today because all the parks are filled with hobos and drug addicts. You even can walk around the city and you can look at some of the cemeteries that are there, and the cemeteries are, they look like ruins more than cemeteries. Like there's grasses and everything growing too long, vines and shit like that growing over the gravestones because no one keeps up with that. Even in front of the Union building, in front of like arguably the most important building in the country, you get the statue of like Paul Kruger and Nelson Mandela. It's like rusting and filled with graffiti and so on. It just doesn't look good. And also, side note, if it's any consolation, I'm sorry for the horrible video quality. It's the best I can do on this laptop. And also the audio quality. This mic isn't even plugged in. I'm just holding it for for dramatic effect. I don't know. Lenovo is full of shit. It won't accept my mic as an input. It's a long story. But I hope that this video can at least inform one or two people out there of the current situation going on here, how bad it is currently, and at least shed a light on some of the problems that are going on here. And obviously, a lot of countries are having their own problems right now. I mean, the entire world is having a big problem right now with AI, which is a whole nother topic. I don't want to see how that's going to affect this country. I don't know how it will. I mean, replacing jobs would be my guess, but it's just scary to think about. But I do hope, like, my goal with this video was that at least someone can learn something and shed a light on these problems. Other than that, I'm done yapping. Have a good day.